Okay, we are definitely shifting gears here this morning. We just talked with the folks at the Montana Brewers Association. Right now, we are going to talk about some music. It's some pretty special music, John.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're also going to be talking a little bit about the situation in America with how we view our police forces.
Right.
Lenda Lanier is our guest now, and she's a songwriter out of, is it Darby? Is that right?
Well, I live in Darby now. I was Stevensville, but it's Darby now.
Okay.
I'm a Darbarian.
So now
Darbarians at the gate.
So is Darby like, it's not a suburb, obviously, right?
No, you've never been here, Peter?
Of course I have.
Okay.
Yeah, but
it's a nice little western town.
Right, exactly.
I love it.
All right. So tell me why you moved to Darby.
Well, I have a ministry. I do a lot of different kind of programs, and things have changed financially, so we're trying to downsize a little bit. And so we've sold our log home in Stevensville, and it was very hard on me, but we did it. And then we found a home in Darby that's a beautiful home, and so there you go.
So anyway, you've got this song out. It's called Hero Behind the Badge. I'll play a little bit of it, and we'll talk about some of your motivations behind the song.
So we're going to flip this switch and that switch, and we'll be able to let you listen in. So we're going to listen to The Hero Behind the Badge.
He holds his little girls, gives them a soft hug. His baby puts her hand on his badge. An officer in blue reaches for his wife. He says, baby, it's gonna be a long night. As he pulls out of his drive, he whispers a prayer. Lord, let me come home to my girls. A battered baby cries. He makes the sacrifice of saving all from danger in the world. There's a hero behind the badge in America. He's a daddy putting his life on the line. He's the one we lean on for protection. Strong and courageous, brave enough to die.
All right, there you go.
A little snippet of it there.
So tell us why you decided to put this together.
Well, my son Cody was an officer in Missoula. He was the youngest officer that had been hired there, but he lateraled over to Aurora, Colorado. So as the mother of an officer, what's been going on and the war on cops has just broken my heart. And every day that Cody goes on patrol, I'm just in constant prayer, because that's my boy. And I want people to realize that the law enforcement are human beings, too. They have feelings. They have a family they want to go home to. And so with all this going on, that's how this song was born.
I wanted to play a little soundbite from you. Peter, this is a clip from CNN. It's just a woman's name. Mm-hmm. I think her first name is Michaela Angela.
Yeah,
it's
Michaela Angela Davis.
She was speaking yesterday about some of the recent shootings, and I wanted to see how you would relate to someone like this.
Okay, here we go.
Why are we asked to have a moral compass that no one else is following? At a certain point, the burden is too great on the black community, and everyone, the white community, has to stand up and say enough and deal with their brutal history and their brutal system in which people are operating. This is not a bad apple. This is a bad system that has always been bad for black Americans. So when you hear this outside agitating of kids throwing rocks who know that this country has never cared about them, that the only plan for them is prison, how are they supposed to react? And they're not burning their community. That's like when saying that they're disrupting their communities, that's like saying they're burning down the plantation, right? At what point does that community feel like theirs? At what point do those badges feel like they're there to protect them? They're there to protect property. They're there to protect whiteness. They are not there to protect them. So until there is justice, like there's been people are being killed with impunity.
Okay, so when you hear that, Linda, what goes through your mind?
That's hard for me to hear.
Okay.
And I can say for my son, he has no prejudice. They're people. And, you know, a black president was elected. You know, come on. Although I have to say, guys, because it drives me nuts, he's half white, okay? But, you know, they're there to protect and serve whoever needs to be protected and served. And as my son says, if they would just listen to what we're telling them to do, we wouldn't have a problem here. And everything's out of control. Our whole country is just, can you recognize America? I can't.
Well, let me ask you, though, Linda, we're up against the break. So when we come back, I would like to ask you, because you're right in the middle of all this with your family, if you have any constructive ideas that perhaps we could, you know, this particular program is being streamed all over the world on our website at newstalkkgvo.com. So perhaps you might be able to pass along some wisdom from a police family that might be able to help folks. Can we do that when we come back?
Yes.
All right, 721-1290. We'd also love to have you guys call in, 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309, or you can post your comments on our Facebook page. We're talking with Lenda Lanier. She's from Darby, written a beautiful song called Hero Behind the Badge. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. Lenda Lanier joining us. She's the author and of course the artist, produced the Hero Behind the Badge. Now but folks, phones are starting to fill up here, Linda. Okay. So if you would mind telling us, just asked you for a couple of suggestions from your perspective as the mother of a police officer. Of course, law enforcement runs in the family. So what would you suggest to the comments we just heard from this woman who feels that her community, if you will, is completely disenfranchised?
Well, you know, they're looting their own stores and everything. I mean, it's all crazy, and the officers are there giving their lives to protect these protesters. Now, some of the protesters are peaceful, but like my son said, most protests are not peaceful. We need to join together. We need to wake up here and know that we're all here trying to work together. We really are, and these officers are trying to protect. I mean, the Charlotte, North Carolina thing, that was a black officer shooting a black guy. So, you know, it's not prejudice here. It's just that we need to come together. We're so divided in this country that we need to get our heads straight. And excuse me, but we need God in the center of our country again. And so, you know, we just need to work together and realize the officers, 98% of the officers are good. Okay, there's good and bad in everything.
Gotcha. All right, let's get to the phones. Tyler, you are on with Lenda Lanier. Hi.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
So yesterday I had an interesting conversation on Facebook. A friend of mine from the Navy posted a comment saying that we needed to wait for all the facts to come in, and that was, you know, last 2 nights ago. And he had about 10 comments on there, and the last comment before I chimed in was a friend of his from Colorado, and I'm from Colorado, but I thought it was interesting because she went off on this tirade against the cops, and literally none of the facts had come in yet. By the time I got to reading it, I had watched the news most of the morning, and so I knew most of the facts. And so I chimed in and let him know that he had a gun, and he was shot by a black officer. And I ended up having an all-day debate with this one woman from Colorado who was slighted at one point in her life by a cop who pulled over her husband. And it literally took me all day to find out what he actually did wrong, that he ended up getting a ticket for. He had expired plates. But she claimed that the officer wrote down he was going 30, and the officer wrote down that he was going 60. And her main complaint was that there's no accountability for police officers who lie on reports. And it literally took me all day to try and, you know, suss this out of her. But in the end, like going through the debate and talking to this, just literally having a conversation with somebody and leading her to the correct answers, she wanted police oversight. She wanted police reform. She wants new laws for the police department. And I asked her, okay, well, give me some ideas. What are your ideas for police reform? And she goes, you know, more mandatory training, more training in sensibility, more training on this. And I'm like, so you don't think that they get any of that training at all? Like 80% of their time is doing paperwork and training and stuff?
Constantly training. My son's always in training.
Exactly. Yeah. What I ended up finding out is that, like most people, She had absolutely no clue what she was talking about. She had no education. She had never even spoken to a cop.
Right.
And I straight up encouraged her. I said, look, this is what you need to do. You need to go down to your local police station. You need to talk with the officers at the front desk. You need to request a ride-along. And you need to take a pen and paper and sit down with the officer on the ride-along and just ask him questions the entire time.
Perfect, Tyler.
Yeah, it's that simple. In order for us to fix this, we have to be able to have an open conversation sensibly, and we have to be able to direct these people with no education and no information to where they can get the information.
For both of you, perhaps, a good question, I think, is that, there are people out there, obviously, that are at the wrong end of a bad decision from a police officer. Right. I think we can all admit that, right? We are not flawless, even when we are police officers as human beings. So how do you get past this perception,
Tyler, thanks for the call,
from this woman on CNN I played a second ago, Michaela? How do you get past this idea that it's systematic, that it's a problem with the whole system? How do you convince someone that it is just the problem with that person's decision-making at the time and not necessarily something systemic?
Would you know how hard it is to change a person's decision once they have it locked in their head? I want to give you a little story. My son answered a call. There was 3 children in a field who started a fire. And by the time he arrived there, it was just a blaze. And he actually was so stressed out thinking these kids could have burned up. There was 3 children, 2 white boys, a little black boy. The 2 white kids ran away. Cody was able to get the little black guy. So what Cody did, he had to call the mom because he wanted her to come pick him up. But while he was waiting for the mom to come, Cody brought that little boy into his car, and he showed him all the different things, the radio, the this, the that, just showing him what the cop car was all about and telling him that if he could straighten his life out and behave himself, that he too one day could be a cop. And the kid said, really? He was about 12. And in the meantime, here comes the mom. She's screaming and yelling at Cody and thinking that Cody's going to take the little boy to the station. And he goes, whoa, ma'am, stop. I've got your son right here. I've just been showing him the car and all the different parts of the car. And she began to cry. And she said, nobody has taken time with my boy. Nobody has taken time with him before. So I believe that changed that little boy's life. I do. I think it changes look. I think we need to educate the public. I think if more officers could get into the schools, if more officers could get into maybe giving seminars to the public, and that's why this song is so important to me. I have a new program as soon as I get it out there, Unity in the Thin Blue Line. I've been asked to go to a public school in Oregon right now to kind of educate the kids, sing my songs to them, bring the officers in and let them see, even the canines. If we could just get down to brass tacks here, but the only thing is there's people's minds that we will never change.
Right.
Because they're locked in.
Let's get another call in before we have to take a break, Linda. Okay. So let's get John. Well, I'm sorry. Hang on just a second. This is John. Go ahead, John. What's on your mind?
Hi, yes. I think those are some really good comments on the education front and promoting the good aspects of our law enforcement. The truth is at the core of it, and there are George Soros-funded Black Lives Matter activists that are behind almost every one of these incidences.
You're correct.
And that needs to be shut down.
That's right.
And shut down good because it's being promoted by other liars in media and promoted into a big thing that just blossoms, and there's no reason for it.
It's true.
Well, John, thanks for the call. And we're up against a break, so we're going to come right back. We'll get Patty on the line, Lenda Lanier joining us. She has done a song called The Hero Behind the Badge, and we'll be right back. Hey, we're back on Talk Back. Joining us this morning on the phone from Darby, Lenda Lanier. And you wanted to read something before we get back to our calls, Linda. Go ahead.
A part of America died.
Okay.
Somebody killed a policeman today, and a part of America died. A piece of our country he swore to protect will be buried with him at his side. The suspect that shot him will stand up in court with counsel demanding his rights, while a young widowed mother must work for her kids and spend many long, lonely nights. The beat that he walked was a battlefield, too, just as he'd gone off to war. Though the flag of our nation won't fly half-mast, to his name they will add a gold star. Yes, somebody killed a policeman today in your town or mine. While we slept in comfort behind our locked doors, a cop put his life on the line. Now his ghost walks a beat on a dark city street, and he stands at each new rookie's side. He answered the call, of himself gave his all, and a part of America died.
Wow, that is very powerful.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the phones. A lot of folks want to visit with you. So,
Okay.
Patty, you're up next. You're on with Lenda Lanier. Hi.
Hi, Linda, and that was a beautiful poem.
Hi,
and it
Patty.
also holds true for our veterans.
Well, I do a whole veteran thing too, Patty. I am a very patriotic woman.
Uh-huh. What I'm concerned about is what I'm seeing is that Vietnam veterans and the Iraq veterans and the veterans are literally being pushed aside. I can tell from personal experience that
I can too.
nobody cares about the veterans, and yet we're bringing all of these refugees into our country.
Yeah.
250,000
I know.
were brought into Long Beach.
Yeah.
I had a business in Long Beach years ago, and I remember when NAFTA, and people were coming in that from other and just opening a business. You cannot go to Mexico and buy land, and you cannot move into Mexico without going through the legal process or any other country. But they are bringing them in on refugee status, and I've seen one of the refugees that are coming. He don't look like a refugee. He looks real healthy and well-dressed.
Yes.
So there's something else behind it, kind of like Black Lives Matter. And these kids are playing into it. They don't understand that they're playing into it, stirring it up so that they just, what happened in Syria?
Right.
Same thing.
Yes.
Now it started, and thank your son. We love our policemen. Missoula has some great guys on the force, and they do put their life on the line. And
Every
thank
day.
you.
Okay, Patty, we're going to have to move on and get some more calls, okay?
Sure.
Thanks,
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks for your call. All right, let's get Marilyn. Marilyn, you're up next with the Lenda Lanier. Go ahead.
Good morning. Hi, Linda. I met
Marilyn.
you down in Hamilton years ago at a pro-life event that you were at.
Very
And heard your testimony, and I appreciate the fact that you brought up that we need the Lord in America again.
We do.
So there's 60 million babies' blood that's been shed over our land. We need policemen to stand for the children and not for the abortionists. I've been a pro-life activist all over the country, and there are scriptures that relate to this. Ezekiel, it says bloodshed, because bloodshed follows bloodshed. Because of this, the land mourns. And then that's in Hosea. And then since you did not hate bloodshed, bloodshed will pursue you. That's in Ezekiel. So, and there's a couple, Operation Save America has written an open letter to police. And because we respect the police, we've been out there doing peaceful protests for years, and the police stand there to protect us and the other side from each other.
That's right.
And but the police need to start speaking out for the unborn child, and this bloodshed does need to stop.
I know my son does.
Marilyn?
I know that.
Yeah.
Marilyn, thanks for your call. We got to move along because we're rapidly running out of time.
Okay.
So I want to get one more call in real quick.
Okay.
Dave, you're on with Linda. Very quick. Got about 2 minutes. Go.
Yeah. Good morning. I thought the police should maybe get some medical training, because it seems like when I see it on TV that police, after the bad guy's been shot and laying on the ground bleeding, the police are all standing around watching him bleed to death, and it just doesn't look good. And maybe they should, try to save him a little bit. Sure, he's a bad guy, but
well, I think I could explain that. Linda, you tell me if I'm wrong, okay? Because if a police officer is not at EMT trained, he could be blamed for whatever happens.
Exactly. I have to read this very quickly. Tears of a Cop Under Pressure.
Actually, we don't have time.
Okay.
We're completely out of time. But Dave, thanks for your call. And Linda, how can people get more information about your what you're doing and your music and your ministry?
Okay, just go to Lanier, LANIER.org. And everything's on there. You can order music. You can read my bio. You can see my press releases. You can see everything about me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
You take care. All right. It is coming up on 9:30, so should we just go directly to Attorney General Fox? Take a quick break? We'll take a quick break, come right back. Attorney General Tim Fox joining us on the phone. We have a whole raft of things we want to discuss with him, and we appreciate him taking time to visit with us this morning. We're coming right back. Hey, we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. And joining us on the phone right now, we have Tim Fox, Montana's Attorney General. Again, Tim, thanks for taking time to be with us today.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me on, and good morning to your listeners as well.
And I understand you've been recently adopted. It's nice to have parents, I suppose, even at your age.
Yeah, well, my brothers have been telling me that I'm adopted for years. As you know, I grew up in Hardin on the edge of the Crow Reservation and near the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and that's been a big part of my life. A lot of my friends are Crow, and a family adopted me this summer. It's a ceremony that's very humbling and very moving. And we did it at the Crow Fair, the teepee capital of the world. If you've never been to the Crow Fair, you got to go, at the main dancing arbor. Huge honor. They had gifts, and they prayed in Crow, and we danced. I don't know if there's any video of that, but I think I did okay. And they gave me a name, a Crow name, Spiritual Runner. And it's amazing how they go through all of this. A lot behind the scenes. They had a drum team that sang an honor song. There were thousands of people there. It was just a great honor, a wonderful night. And, you know, my roots are deep over there, and they're deeper even now.
Now, Mr. Tim, Spiritual Runner, I have to ask, does this open up? I mean, do you get tribal membership now? I mean, what does that mean? I mean, do you get more hunting and fishing opportunities or what?
Well, no, I don't get per diem checks and that kind of thing. But, you know, it's something that the Northern Plains and maybe tribal tribes across the country have done for years. And it's an honor. It's a recognition that we're all interrelated and that we have common goals, common dreams. And I've worked very hard as Attorney General to foster good relationships with our tribes and make sure, particularly in the area of public safety and law enforcement, consumer protection and other avenues. And I think the tribal members see that, appreciate that. I hope all Montanans do. So in some respects, it doesn't change my life at all, but it does impact, my relationships. My adoptive parents will be staying with me and my wife, Karen, this weekend. They're coming over for the Last Chance powwow here in Helena. And it's a great honor.
Right. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit, because just yesterday there was a big announcement that after, I think, 5 grueling years, the folks in Montana finally settled with ExxonMobil over what happened with the Yellowstone pipeline spill, right?
That's right. In July of 2011, during a rainy time, high runoff, the Silvertip pipeline near Laurel ruptured and dumped about 63,000 gallons of oil into our wonderful treasure, the Yellowstone River. And Exxon has spent about $140 million to date on cleanup and restoration. And we've spent a good portion of that 5 years working with the federal government and all the various agencies and local governments to come up with a restoration plan. First and foremost, we needed to do cleanup. Now we need to restore the great Yellowstone River to what it was before the pipeline spill. Riparian areas need to be fixed. We need to work on restoring the habitat. And so Exxon is paying $12 million for those purposes. The 2 trustees under the Oil Pollution Control Act are the state of Montana and the federal government. And it's not a done deal. I think it's important to note for your listeners. We filed a consent decree in federal court yesterday, and we made public a draft restoration plan, and both of those are subject to 30 days of public comment. And you can see those documents on the Department of Justice website at dojmt.gov. There's a link to the story about the settlement, and on that you'll find two links, one to the consent decree, one to the draft restoration plan. We have until October 31st at 5 p.m. for folks to comment. There's a public hearing on October 12th in Helena. But all of that information is on our website at the Montana Department of Justice, and we hope that Montanans will chime in and tell us what they think.
I'm curious, one of the things that we spoke about on this issue yesterday was that a land purchase might be necessary, or is part of the draft plan, at least at this point. Who would be purchasing the land? Obviously, the money from the settlement would be, but who would be the person or the organization in charge of overseeing the land?
So more than likely, it would be the state of Montana through the Montana Land Board.
I see. So it would be public land, state public land.
How much land are we talking about, Tim?
Well, we don't know. That's part of the process.
Okay.
In terms of trying to help with the riparian areas and make sure that we don't have diversions that are bad for the aquatic life and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the Yellowstone's taken a hit with that, and then, of course, what happened with the bacterial infection closed down the river for quite some time. So the Yellowstone's a pretty sensitive area.
Well, every ecosystem is, and certainly when unnatural things like pipeline spills happen, that changes the river and the ecosystem, and so we want to spend this money and get the system back to where it was. We impacted about 85 miles of the Yellowstone River, and it really is the lifeblood, our rivers and streams and lakes of our state.
Have you heard Wildlife and Parks or any of the scientists involved in looking at that whitefish kill-off? Are they thinking that it may be related to the oil spill?
I haven't heard that that's the case at all. I haven't talked to folks about that, but it's so separated in time, and it's even further upriver from where the oil spill was.
I see.
I'd have a hard time thinking that they are related.
Gotcha. Well, one other question I had about this issue is when it comes to pipelines, right? And we deal with these issues when something goes wrong, we try to repair it or fix it. Is any of the money from the settlement going to ensure that things like this don't happen in the future, perhaps more pipeline checks or a systematic routine for making sure that the equipment is up to date and up to speed?
So this money won't be used for that, but Senator Daines got legislation through Congress that does that, and the state of Montana has taken steps since 2011, and they have required pipeline operators all over Montana to deepen their crossings and put in valves on either side of the water bodies so that these things can be stopped before they create a lot of harm. On the federal level, Senator Daines' legislation, which was a great idea, requires additional regulatory inspections, more stringent requirements in terms of the technology and how these things are done. So we're light years away from when the Silvertip pipeline was installed, and it was obviously not deep enough when the river bottom was scoured. So going forward, you will find that not only will new pipelines be much more safe, but the existing pipelines have been retrofitted to comply with these new requirements.
We have a question from one of our listeners. Gloria asks, can Attorney General Fox stop the refugee resettlement program, and if not, why not?
So refugee resettlement, immigration law in general, under our Constitution, is the purview of the federal government, and that's why you've not seen any state governors or other state officials being successful across the country in changing that fact. I would support legislation in Congress to give the states a greater say in these things. We're a compassionate people in America, and we have a history of being open arms for the oppressed and folks that really need to come here to a free place where they can live and prosper. It's a different world nowadays, and it's difficult, if not impossible, to vet individuals who come from areas like the Middle East that are in upheaval, where there's no records of who they are and what their intentions are. So the good news is, as I just read the other day, that at the moment the federal government has no intention in placing Syrian refugees in Montana and 9 other states. Our office will continue to be vigilant in working to make sure Montanans are safe, and I would encourage all Montanans to be a part of a civil dialogue on these issues.
Sure. Now, one thing I participated in when you were here in Missoula with the crime victims forums, some of those stories were incredibly moving, and I know you've been doing it all around the state, right?
That's right. We did 5 of those this year, and in the larger cities. And you're right, the stories, the moving stories that these crime victims had were not only impactful, but they're important for law enforcement, judges in our court system, victim advocates, and other professionals to hear. Basically, what we were looking to do is to learn from the victims of crime how our system was working or not working. And my staff is meeting next month with me, and we're going to talk about what we learned in these forums. I would tell you that in a general sense, we need to communicate better with victims of crime at every step of the way. Law enforcement professionals have come a long way in terms of how they treat victims in the initial contact and throughout the system. We need to do better with our county attorneys and our prosecutors. Missoula County is really on the forefront of that. They're doing a much better job. And, of course, in our court systems, that's a real daunting thing to go through the justice system. So,
well, that's because our county attorney comes on Talkback every week. She's good at communicating in that way. Before we run out of time, there's something that piqued my interest. A little birdie told me that you have an update on drug use and interdictions in Montana. I was hoping you could kind of fill us in on what you were hoping to talk about there.
Sure. A couple of things. One is that since 2010, we've had a 240% increase in the number of charges related to methamphetamine. It's an epidemic. It really is. And it's coming from primarily Mexican cartels across our border. We need to shore up our borders for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the flow of drugs. But we've had, for instance, I instituted the canine units in the Montana Highway Patrol a couple of years ago, the first canine units for drug interdiction. And they're very successful. We have had a number of increases in a lot of different things with the Highway Patrol, but in 2013, we had 96 felony drug charges that Highway Patrol started. We had 292 last year, so an increase of 200 in just 2 years. So it's not just methamphetamine, it's heroin, cocaine, recreational marijuana. Of course, our DUI problem has been something we've been dealing with for years in Montana, and I've been working on that too.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much for joining us. I know you got to hit the road here.
Yeah, thank you. I'll see you guys up there for the Grizzly Homecoming in a couple of weeks, and appreciate you having me on the show, and I hope your listeners have a good rest of the week and a great weekend.
Thanks, Tim. Happy first day of fall.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Take care. All right, we're way overdue for a break, so hang on. We're going to come right back. Harry, we're going to get your call. 721-1290 is our number. We've got to have open phones for the next 15 minutes. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5309. Let's get right to Harry. Harry, what's on your mind? First of all, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Good morning. I was going to ask Mr. Fox something, but since I missed that chance, so talked about the police. Now,
sure, go ahead.
I understand the police are doing their job, but there's the saying that power corrupts, right? And who has more power over everyday life from the day to day over people than the police?
Yeah.
And so they expect you to respect them, but then they should respect the people too.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And they're saying about instructing people. I think that they should do is to, especially inner cities, instead of the cops driving around, get out and walk around, talk to people. Become part of the community, not just someone who comes in during their thing and leaves again. So, but also, the people. I can see why people get mad because for every person that they say was shot rightfully, they have a video of somebody being shot with their hands up. The guy running away shot back. The kid that got shot 16 times. And the worst thing about that is that every cop lied about it. They said, "Oh, well, he lunged towards him." They showed the video; he was lunging at nobody. But
whoa, hold on. So you're saying, from what you just said, for every time there's a justified shooting by a police officer, you believe that there's an unjustified shooting?
Well, I mean, right now they show a video.
Now, I don't disagree that you're going to get a lot more media coverage of an unjustified shooting, but if you actually believe that 50% of shootings by police are unjustified,
I don't believe it's 1 for 1.
No, I a little bit hyperbole, but there is a lot of times that and ones that aren't videoed. How do you know? You're taking the police officer's word over the person that got shot or the people around him.
No, real quick. I mean, I get you. There are problems with American justice, I'm sure, and I don't disagree that there are problems with American policing all the time too. But that when those things happen, there's investigations.
Yeah, by who? By the police?
No.
Yeah, almost every. Yeah, well,
in fact, when an organization does it, an outside organization has to come in to do the investigation.
Well,
right.
I think our state, the sheriffs investigate the police, city police, and police investigate the sheriffs or something.
And sometimes the Department of Criminal Investigations out of Helena does it.
And beyond that, it goes through the court.
They ask, how do they investigate? They ask the cops, and they say, "Well, this has happened," and they take and you take.
Well, what are they supposed to do, Harry?
Well, that's it though. That's how the investigation. So unless there's a video. And they're always going to take the police officer's word over civilians.
What I hear you saying is that there should be body cameras for everybody.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay.
And even the Ferguson, the Ferguson, he probably was in right shooting that, but they treated that policeman.
Are you talking about the Michael Brown shooting?
Yeah, they treated that policeman a lot different than you do the average person because they took him to his, grand jury, and in a grand jury for average people, they just have a prosecutor comes up and say, "This is why we want to prosecute him," and that's it.
Oh, by the way, that went way higher than that. That went all the way to the Department of Justice investigated the Michael Brown shooting.
Yeah,
and they had people on the streets calling for the officer's death.
But I'm saying that with the grand jury thing, in the grand juries, nobody gets the defense like he did. They brought it. He got to testify in the front of the grand jury. They had the whole defense thing. That's not the way grand juries work, but they did for him because he's a police officer. So I mean, the fact that they treat police differently than the average people. That shows that, then it makes people mad.
Well, Harry, we're going to let you go because we're like 3 minutes overdue for a break. But thank you. Appreciate your call. We're going to come right back after 1 minute and stay with us. We'll wrap things up in a moment. Hey, we're back on Talkback. About 4 minutes left in the program, and all 4 lines are full. So let's get as many calls as we can. Terry, go ahead. You're on Talkback.
Yes, hi. Can you? Who was the politician that was just speaking a few minutes ago?
That was Montana Attorney General Tim Fox.
Okay, I have just a very simple, short question. He was talking about the increase of meth and drugs in our state.
Right.
My simple question is, what can we do about the increase in our own community in Missoula? Meth is cooked very much in Missoula.
Yep.
Right in downtown Missoula, as a matter of fact. And the only reason why I know this is because my son went missing, and I had to go underground to track him down and find out where he was. It's not just our borders; it's in our own community.
Right.
And we know, and the problem is.
But was your son involved with meth somehow?
He got involved. They had there's people that recruit these kids to come work. He had mental health issues, right? So he got involved in it, yes. And it was a sad thing. He's okay now, and everything is straightened up now. But I had to do all the searching and everything on my own, which is really, really sad.
So what, the police wouldn't help you? Or what?
They can only do so much. They could not go and interrogate. They could not go and look. They could not go and find.
But they had to have probable cause and a search warrant, right? Yeah.
Well, he was a minor, but the sad thing is once he crossed the border, and they took him across the border to work in this illegal place down in Oregon, there was nothing anybody could do. We had to do it all on our own.
Sure.
And it was sad. I mean, so my question is, though, it's just not coming up from Mexico. Our own community is very well involved, and it festers in Missoula.
All right.
What can we do about that?
That's a very good question. I wish we had more time. Tell you what, call us back another time when we have open phones. We'll spend more time on it, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Gregan, we have 2 minutes. Go.
Good morning, gentlemen. In regards to the immigration...
Got to turn your radio down, Gregan.
How's that?
Go ahead.
Okay, in regards to the immigration thing, I think people forget that all immigrants came over, and say the Irish, they came over and they cloistered into a neighborhood until years later they were able to assimilate into the society. We had a president who was Catholic, and he even had a difficult time jumping the religious side of it.
Right.
I think that first of all, people have to think about this is going to take time, and to have these people assimilate, just like the neighbor down the street. These people came from a war-torn area with a total different society, and I think that we're going to have to give those people time to, just like our ancestors.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the call, Greg. Appreciate it. Eric, we have less than a minute. Go ahead.
Were you still talking about let me, before you start talking about cops and what they do,
okay,
you must discuss the role of government.
All right.
When you discuss the role of government, you must discuss that it is there to protect individual rights. In order to understand more fully the role of government, you must understand what a right is and you must enumerate what the rights are.
Can you do it in 30 seconds?
Yeah, no, I can't do it in 30 seconds.
I'm sorry. That's all much time we have.
But this is you can't start discussing cops and what they do until you start talking about enumerated rights.
Okay.
And we must agree on what those are. Then you can determine whether they're heroes or not.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
Appreciate the call. We're out of time. So tomorrow it's open phones?
No, we'll have Matt Rosendale. He's running for Secretary of State on.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you guys have a great day. And, of course, tomorrow we'll have Hunter's Breakfast live from Paradise Falls. And I think we'll hear from Kirsten Pabst as well. So have a great day, everybody.